Boker Tov, Rabbi Eric Solomon once again. Another message with Morning Torah. It is Monday, May 18th, 39th day of the counting of the days to Shavuot of the Omer. Quick teaching on the book of Numbers. So we're in the fourth book of the Torah, the first Torah portion. And it's the beginning of Bamidbar Sinai. It all happens in the wilderness, in the desert of the Sinai desert. We're making our way to the Promised Land. And God asked Moses, to count the people, to do a census. And ostensibly, we're counting the people as we prepare for our people to enter the Promised Land. We kind of need to have ourselves together and ready and kind of organized according to tribe and leader, as we get ourselves moving forward. And this is kind of, make kind of a strategic, you might say military or governmental, to know who you have, what you have, and who is ready to enter the land. But I want to get into specifically the Hebrew around the counting. So it says, not just count the people like you might expect. It says, Se'u et Rosh Bnei Yisrael. So the way of counting was Se'u et Rosh. Laset, or Se'u, means to lift up. So the guy says, lift up, Rosh and Aaron, lift up. Et Rosh, the head of all the children of Israel. So the way that counting happened, the actual census happened, and this is based on scholarship I remember reading, already years ago, is that apparently what we do is they'd line up people in massive groups and ask them to put their head down, and there would be a leader on a higher plane, like some kind of altar, I don't know, higher mountain, some kind of a structure. And they go to people and say, lift your head, lift your head, lift your head. By doing so, every time they lift their head, they could count a person and know who they counted and who had yet to be counted. So the way that actually counting happened in ancient Israel was like, lift your head, lift your head, lift your head. So it basically says, not literally count the people of Israel. It says, lift the head of all the children of Israel. And one even may say, lift the face of all the children of Israel. I think this brings a profound truth about the issue of counting, and specifically under this pandemic crisis, right? Every day in our local newspaper, the News and Observer, it lists how many people in our state it counts how many people have gotten sick, or at least the tests reveal how many have been sick, and sadly, how many have died. Not only across our state, but even per county or in our area. And we get to see what that means and to see the trends. And this is things that, for example, the HHS director, Dr. Mandy Cohen, we're a very proud member of our congregation, make determinations with the governor about how to actually run our state, how we should reopen is based on the numbers. So they are literally counting. They're looking at each person and what the aggregate is. So the tension around counting, and coming up with statistics and numbers is that when you start looking at numbers in aggregate, right? And I mean, this is no attack on our government. I'm just talking about just in general, right? A situation where or a situation in the world, in the news, where 1,000 people die or 100 people die in a crisis, it is painful and it can be overwhelming. A huge number of people died and it's just, wow, that's terrible. And then most people tend to just move on with their day. But Se'u et Rosh says, but when you're counting, lift up the head of each person. Means don't just look at these people as an aggregate, as a group, as all these people died of coronavirus. Look at each individual person's head, each individual's face. Lift up their face and see them for who they are. They are not just a number, even though you may have to count them. Each one is an individual with a soul made in the image of God that sadly needs to be counted, and sadly, in this case, has been lost. And this tension between trying to understand numbers for statistical reasons, but also each individual as an individual human being with enormous loss, is the tension, I really feel at this time, but really in the tension of the Torah. Torah wants to get everyone, all the numbers, but says, but we don't want to forget the individual. The extreme example in our people's history of people being treated as a number, just a number, was during the Holocaust, the Shoah, when Hitler placed and Nazis numbers on our arms to say, you are just a number. That is an extreme. And on the other side are those leaders and politicians and even news outlets at this time who take each individual person, each medical professional, each essential worker, each person who is lost, and says, let us lift their head. Let us look at each individual person and recognize the challenge, their suffering, and recognize their soul. Let's count, but count in a way that recognizes each person. You know, that I believe is also the role of religious community. You know, it's the role of a religious community done ideally allows each person to be seen. You know, the cheer song where everybody knows your name. That is what is ideal. In a world where numbers and people can feel anonymous and feel just one of the crowd, a true community says, I see you. Lift up your head. We're not just counting you in the big group. We're counting you because we count on you. You mean something to us. Lift up your face. Let us see you shine. And that is what the Torah says even in the Midrash. When God counts us, it's not for just to know all our big number. It's because God loves each and every one of us and wants to take a moment to lift up our heads, Su'at Rosh, and see us for who we are. To be known is to be loved. May this be a day where we look at each other by not as just a group, but each one by helping lift up each other's head, each other's face. Boker Tov, sweet and safe day.